Hello, I'm Notorious ALB, proprietor of Amidships, and today we're going to be reviewing a rather tragic game. Not tragic in its sense of story or theme, but in the story of its development. During the space sim resurgence of the early 2010s, there were many games announced that required funding for their lofty ambitions. Both Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous's Kickstarters began asking for funding. There was, however, another game so easily forgotten or perhaps missed entirely that had ambitions identical to these other games, and it delivers in areas these other projects still fail to even today. Unfortunately, it had an unfavourable start, with the Kickstarter going live a whole year after Star Citizen and Elite Dangerous. With most of the attention and money already steered towards them, this title was almost fated to obscurity purely based on the timing. The game is still in early access, but I'm presenting this as a review for reasons that will become clear later in the video. That said, the game is still in a perfectly purchasable and playable state, and it's actually one I recommend checking out if you're a sci-fi fan, aerospace nerd, flight sim nerd, or all of the above. So today, I'm going to be reviewing Rogue System. Rogue System is a purebred, hardcore spaceflight simulator programmed in the LeadWorks engine by one Michael Giuliano, an ex-US Air Force B-1 bomber technician turned self-taught coder and programmer. Rogue System aims to see the space combat trader games of old meet the hardcore flight sims of today in a, quote, moddable sandbox. The project plans to have extra modules, presumably as DLC, to expand the gameplay for things like FPS combat and multiplayer. Though it is single player only in its current form, the game's closest relative is Digital Combat Simulator, or DCS. This becomes immediately apparent as soon as you sit in the cockpit and you have to play the Russian roulette-esque game of where is the on button, knowing that any one of these buttons could be the self-destruct. Thankfully, tutorials, videos and PDF guides exist to help take you through the cold start procedure, as well as the other functions and capabilities of the ship. Birds of a feather seem to flock together, at least as far as plane technicians that also play games go, it seems. You then need to use what you have learned to complete various missions, tasks, and challenges. The game offers pre-arranged single missions, both with and without tutorial walkthroughs for each. The game also has a career mode to allow you to play freely, completing missions as they appear in order to make money and progress. One big thing that Rogue System has in its favour is its catering to multiple control systems. Most flight sims require you to invest in some flight sticks, which are great, I have a cheap pair myself, but you can operate the ship in-game with a mouse and keyboard quite comfortably. For example, when it comes to the cockpit buttons, you can manually click them, configure them to your keyboard, or use your flight sticks. As with many of the games I'm a fan of, the displays are all diegetic, with key information being displayed on various instruments, MFDs, and displays clearly within the game world, and not on a user interface. The buttons and switches all feel tactile and responsive, which only goes further to the game's credit. Most other sims either have subpar frame rates, lag, or a prototype interface system not playing nicely with the cockpit arrangement, leading to overlapping buttons and such. Not only that, but Rogue System was planned to be fully moddable, so people could create their own ships and systems as well as campaigns and missions, meaning that if you can think of a ship, a realistic simulated version would have been found in this game, no doubt painstakingly recreated by an admirably obsessed member of the community. The game makes use of a realistic spaceflight model, so unlike many standard issue sci-fi games with a basic flight arrangement, in Rogue System you will have to fly according to Newtonian laws of physics. You can't just fly in a direction or use hyperdrive magic to transport yourself instantly to a desired location. You have to calculate your apoapsis, periapsis, and trajectories as you slingshot yourself from one celestial body to another. Make sure you leave plenty of time for your retro burn, or you could well overshoot the planet or even beyond it. Even departing from the station can be quite the affair. For example, you must use argon fuel in cold gas mode to safely maneuver away from the station using your maneuvering thrusters before engaging your main thrusters. Otherwise, thruster plasma will damage the station. This is hardcore, hard sci-fi spaceflight. The game features one great-looking spaceship complete with a sparse but nonetheless present interior, the SV-46-2 Flying Fox, which is a kind of service recovery ship. A previous version of the game featured the GSI S-31C Fire Arc, which is described as a type of strike fighter. For some reason, the decision was made to remove the fire arc from the current version of the game and replace it with the Flying Fox, and so for those curious about that ship in particular, I've provided a link for the older build in the description. It's a hard choice, but if I had to pick one, my favourite is the Fox, purely on the basis that it's got that Star Wars B-wing shape on top of a more spacious interior, even if the fire arc is the ship with the weapons. Players must first master the procedures for their ship before setting out to complete various missions. This is one of the things that I really enjoy about this game and that I want to see in more games that feature ships. I want to get into my ship, not just in the sense of walking around and getting into the chair myself. I want to know the ship's quirks, its oddities, what she can handle, what she can take, how to get it going, and how to cool it off. This way, ships have subtleties of character that truly separate them from one another rather than just having the output numbers tweaked, or a slightly different interior with useless decor and props that may look nice, but ultimately serve no function. Looking at this pre-alpha footage from around 10 years ago, this looks identical to the Star Citizen footage of the period. It's clear to see what Rogue System promised to deliver in terms of immersion and ship fidelity. While the style of the UI that is displayed on the ship's MFDs and monitors is somewhat simple, the cockpits for these spaceships are unique, highly detailed, and replete with buttons and functionality, just as you would expect from any high-fidelity flight sim worth its salt. For example, rather than magic space glass, Rogue System goes all in on hard sci-fi realism with a virtual monitor system or VMS. This can be configured to various external cameras, and the cameras themselves can be tuned with polarization to avoid particularly bright celestial objects from burning your retinas. These can also be damaged, leaving you to fly blindly on instruments only if you are careless, or indeed come under attack. There are also various propulsion methods, astro traffic control, navigation, instrument backlighting, cabin environment, and more. Even the lasers used for scanning and detection are physically modelled. Beam divergence, pulse pattern length, and horizontal and vertical scan rates determine if an object is detected at any given range. All of the above has been promised by existing recent space sims, but even the now multi-million-dollar Star Citizen project has yet to deliver on features even closely resembling this. The graphics are simplistic and feature low-resolution textures reminiscent of Unreal Tournament 2004 and other games of the period. It doesn't fall prey to the overly simplistic graphics you see from a lot of indie and amateur developers these days. Part of the advantage of this simple system is that the game runs as smooth as butter. Your experience isn't marred by your computer coughing and spluttering as it tries to perform ray tracing or any other advanced but highly taxing processes on top of the simulation aspects. The original soundtrack is only present at the title screen, and while it's certainly a hauntingly beautiful track at the start, it does open up onto variations of Blade Runner later on. I still love it though. The sound effects are functional and for the most part appropriate. They fulfill their intended purpose well as a beep, click, or button press. There are some sounds that are like chocolate for the ears. Whereas some other sounds are just downright unwelcome. Open battery 1 to enable safety cover, enable battery 1 and then return cover to safe. Seems simple enough. Jesus Christ on a fire engine! Rogue System's development team is a whopping 1 people, or should I say was 1 person. Unfortunately, Michael, the creative director and programmer, sustained a head injury in July of 2018, and development has been at a standstill since. This is of course awful, not only for Michael but also for the project. You can see the care and attention that has gone into making the various systems and subsystems for the ships, as well as the flight mechanics and other aspects that make these ships interesting to play with. This was clearly Michael's passion, as he did it for real and then after retiring, learned to code and immediately started doing it again. The Steam page indicates that while it could resume at any time, essentially it should be considered bought as is, and is highly unlikely to continue development in the foreseeable future. Further comments from an old colleague indicate further that the game is unlikely to ever progress past the point it's at right now. He also mentions that he has tried to contact Steam to get the game listed for free and to have it archived so people can appreciate what Michael did, but seeing as the price is much higher than that at this time, that doesn't seem to have happened, or it's been undone. I must admit it feels a little wrong to critique this game. Given the fact that it has effectively been forced to release in the state that it has, all of my critiques are for immediately obvious things that will never be rectified. I'd love to see more ships, multi-crew, planetary landing, improved graphics and interior options, walkable stations as originally intended, but I know that at the moment asking for even one more patch is a pipe dream. The default EVA controls are a little awkward, where you have to hold shift for some directions and not others. It also seems that you cannot disembark from your ship on foot despite it being shown in an earlier trailer. And as if that wasn't enough, the current build doesn't feature the Fire Arc, the only other ship to be developed. My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined. There is a strange sense of melancholy as you float about the interior of the Flying Fox, seeing the remnants of what could have been. Removable components, usable breakers, doors only opening to select rooms while others remain sealed behind the bulkhead forever. The EVA suit and airlock being usable, but EVA not being possible due to a bug or incomplete code. This would rightly be a death knell for any other game, but instead, this game has already died for reasons beyond anyone's control, and that's the worst part. I believe this game was the chosen one. It had the technical ship operation, the promise of multi-crew in the original design brief, the first-person perspective, the clickable buttons and controls, everything. This, without a doubt, had the potential to be one of the best space sims in the business, but that potential was cut short, not by a developer, not by a publisher, not by shareholders, but by a freak accident. Overall, I think Rogue System to be a diamond in the rough. It's rightly a little intimidating, especially to those that haven't played a flight sim like DCS before, or those that don't understand realistic spaceflight principles. But for the curious, the enthusiastic, or the obsessed, this game will be a treat like no other. I do think more games and sims could take inspiration from Rogue System. Many games only make use of WASD movement, third-person camera, or other simplistic control methods used to appease an audience with little time or care. I want to see more games like Rogue System with more depth, more to learn, and more to consider. Overall, it makes for a more convincing and more entertaining experience directly through better gameplay and interactivity, rather than leaning on performative sound and visuals. If this is your spaceship that you tour the galaxy with, you want to know everything about it. The startup would be second nature, as would every other function of the ship. Fantasy-styled space sims lack this sort of fidelity, and while games like Star Citizen promise it, they have yet to actually deliver it. Michael, knowingly or not, has set and delivered a precedent, and other potential developers would be foolish not to take this concept and use it as a springboard to further one of their own projects. Not to put words in his mouth, but I think that's what Michael would like to see. Other people using his brainchild to inspire their own works and create a new generation of highly detailed space games, or to put it another way, bring DCS to the stars. But anyway, I've just spent the last few minutes absolutely gushing over a dead game. Are you the kind of player that values immersion to a fault like me? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Or if you're feeling particularly curious, brave, or even crazy, pick up the game on Steam, have a play around, and then let me know what you think afterwards. Just know that according to old friends of Michael who worked on the project, they haven't been able to contact him for a long time, and nobody knows exactly where the money is going, even though they have admin and dev level access, so don't buy the game solely in the hopes of supporting Michael. As I'd finished this video up ready to get shipped over to the channel, I did some final digging to make sure that I had all my facts straight before publishing. I've found some things that I think you should be aware of regarding the current state of Rogue System's development, especially if you're considering buying it. Firstly, Michael's 2018 post on the Steam forum stated that his recovery was going well. Among other issues he was experiencing between his job and Rogue System, he did neglect his family, the same family that are the reason he is alive today. He said he would step away from the project and do some soul-searching. Attempted community contact through old ISI staffers revealed that after asking Michael what he wanted to do with the project, he suggested it be taken off sale. Thank goodness this was never honoured. Michael's company, Digits Crossed Interactive LLC, was then wound down in 2020, which lets us know what the result of his soul-searching was and just about signals the fate of the project in its current form. Despite numerous attempts to contact ex-employees, it has become clear that nobody had the source code other than Michael. The community attempted to pen a single letter requesting the source code so they could continue the project, but there has been no response. The final nail in the coffin was when a user, who I will mention again shortly, managed by no small miracle to contact Michael by telephone. He is alive and well, but the source code and all backups are not and were reportedly destroyed in a flood. Secondly, I mentioned that we don't know who the money for the current Steam listing is going to. The Steam user, 88 miles an hour Tim, that still had developer access, tried to lower the price to preserve the title for others to explore cheaply. This was the case for a while, but shortly afterwards the price was put back to its original amount and Tim's dev access was revoked. Bear in mind that even Tim doesn't know who did this or who is receiving the money. I couldn't tell you what's going on exactly, but it's very weird and doesn't look good. Finally, Steam user Feidry has been in contact with the current staff at ImageSpace Incorporated and, quote, "My contact at ISI has greenlit using crowdfunding to help us attract a lead developer," posted about 1 week ago. He is single-handedly trying to get the facts straight about what has happened and continue the project in Michael's stead. Feidry had contacted Michael by telephone and spoke to the man himself. He said he was well, which is fantastic news, but also that Michael had considered restarting the project multiple times and that Feidry's offer of help could be a good motivator for him. Rogue System might be back on the menu, either as a continuation of the project or from scratch as a new development inside of a more capable engine than the somewhat quaint LeadWorks engine. Feidry reportedly has a license for both LeadWorks and Unity, and after approaching ISI asking to work on it for free, they counter-offered and he accepted. But he cannot do this alone and will need your support. I've linked all of the posts and sources for all of this in the description, but the most important of these is a one-question survey that I urge you to fill out for Feidry and Rogue System's sake. If enough interest is shown, then there is an increased likelihood that this incredible project might not be out for the count just yet. So, if you have game development or development lead experience, please reach out to Feidry and offer your support. His contact details are in the description. Of course, if anything does come of this, I'll make a video on it, so be sure to strike the bell and subscribe for more news. Finally, Michael, if you're watching, thank you for Rogue System. I hope you're doing well. If you come back to start Rogue System anew or to work with Feidry, I believe I can speak for all when I say we'd be mighty pleased to see you again. If not, then best of luck and good health to you and your family. Thanks for watching.